So now we're going to go about how exactly do you take this little loop here and go about laying it into a full dance music track. Because again, unless you're making maybe like hip hop or something like that, where you can listen to the same 8-bar loop for 4 odd minutes, I think you want some variety in the track, in the dance music track. You want to be able to maybe have a different section, build up into the breakdown, which has different elements, bring it back down to the section again. So I'll go showing you guys how exactly to do that. First thing we want to do is we're going to want to break each of these elements up into its own what's called pattern. That way we can say, okay, I want to select the bass pattern. I want to have it play in certain sections here. Or maybe, okay, I want it to go in these sections here. Patterns, as you notice above, is what allows us to do that. So as you see, we're in pattern 1 right now. If we left click and you move the mouse up or down, you can go to the different patterns. So what we'll do is we're going to create a separate pattern for the bass, the keys, and the lead, and then add them into the playlist so we can tell the computer, okay, at this certain time, play this pattern, at this other time, take out this pattern. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go into our bass sound, and we're going to cut the sound away. The way you can do that is we can go in, you can go just right click, you can either hit cut, or you can do Control X, whichever one floats your boat better. Take that away. Go into pattern 2. You can go into select. You want to select. Make sure the green knob is selected for the MIDI or the information that tells the computer what notes to play. You want to make sure that's next to your bass sound. In this case, the Satan FM2. You hit paste or right click paste, and it's back there. All right. So now we're gonna go. So now you know how to add something to a different pattern. Go ahead, rename this. Say bass, change the color so we can left click, hit enter, and we'll scroll back down to pattern 1, take the keys, cut them away. So again, right click, cut, go to your pattern 3, hit paste, or do Control V in this case. We'll go up, rename and color, or you can do F2 if that you want to use that shortcut. We'll go to keys, give it a different color. And you'll see why colors come in helpful in a sec. Go to the final one, cut this, go to pattern 4, paste it in, do the right click, go to rename, and we'll do lead, rename it lead, change it to a blue, hit enter. Now we have each element into a separate pattern. Now, one thing you may notice if you preemptively hit play just to see how the song sounds like now is you notice if you're in like the lead section and you hit play, you don't hear any of the other instruments playing. And so let's do so if we do that, you don't hear any of the drums. Where if you go back to the pattern 1 section, which has all of our drums, you just hear the drums without all the other elements, and you're like, what was the point of this? Like, now I can't hear anything, and well, what's the point of making a full song if you now all you hear is just basic loops, and the loops can't interact with one another? The window that allows you to take each pattern and say, okay, computer, I want you to play this pattern now, not this pattern, is what's called the playlist window. So I'm pointing out over here. It's this big one off to the right. If you're not seeing it, you go up to the knobs up here, left click, should pop up. You can zoom in by clicking this upper bar, right? You can zoom in, zoom out. You can click up here if you want to zoom in vertically. You can click this knob up here, and it adjusts it, the up and down zoom as needed. So we'll kind of set it at that point. From now, if we want to take, okay, I want to tell the computer, I want to tell the computer, okay, for maybe, let's say, I would say for maybe like half a minute or so, I want the computer to play a drum loop behind the whole track. How exactly do I go about doing that? First, we're going to want to go to the pattern that we want to drag into this playlist. Go in, and you'll want to select either, if it's not already selected, you want to select either the paint tool or the draw tool. Usually the paint tool is a lot easier, as if you left click and you hold, it allows you to draw in the patterns and you don't have to keep individually clicking it. If you want to delete patterns, because as you see here, I don't maybe necessarily want them, you right click like anything else in FL and you delete. If you want to adjust the position of a pattern, you can left click, hold it, moves it around, Command Z to put it back. If you want to do a whole selection of them, hold the control button, left click, and I selected all of them. Now I can slide them over. And I'm gonna, for this part, I think I'll just delete it up to the 8th bar for here. And if you're wondering the reason why I'm doing it up to the 8th bar, I would suggest checking out the beats and phrases video I linked off to the side. It'd be super helpful in terms of making apparent why exactly I'm going for the length I'm going for here. And now I've added the pattern. So if you notice, if you really perceive it, you notice this little knob up here turned from orange to just nothing. So you're like, okay, something happened there. What exactly happened? I'm going to tell you guys, when you hit the play button, there's 2 modes of playing in FL Studio. You're like, oh my gosh, are you serious? What is the point? But yes, I will say it does take you a little bit. It does cause some headaches to begin with. But once you can get your head around it, it's actually a super efficient workflow. So in FL, there's 2 ways of previewing your track. You can either go to your pattern preview. So when you see this orange button highlighted, when you hit play, it only plays the pattern selected. So I've got the drum pattern selected. So if I hit space, it'll play just the drums. Or if I go to the key track, if I hit space, it plays just the keys. But if I unclick this, you'll notice there's a little arrow that pops up. So if it goes away, it pops up there. And now when I hit the space bar, it'll play what's ever in the playlist option here at a given time. So let's say if I added the keys here, drag them in. If I hit play, it's going to play both the drums and the keys at the same time. Whereas if I just hit this knob up here, it would play just the keys. So we hit space. And what's even better about this is, let's say, okay, I have the kick and keys going off at about this rate, but I want the bass to come in right about here. Or I should say, yeah, right about over here. What FL allows you to do, so you go to your bass, go over here, you left click, drag it out, go. You can always change the starting point of this cursor by left clicking, drag it around. So we'll say, okay, I want to start it here. So now what would happen is for the first, let's say, 8 seconds or so, the song would play just a kick and the keys, but then the bass at about this 5 bar mark, or what would be at the rate we're going at about, I think, 8-10 minutes in, the bass would start playing. So, and then you can do that again for the lead. So let's say I want the lead to come in as when the bass does. So I go there, select the lead, you go over, you left click it, right click, and now both the lead and the bass come in. So that's the difference between playing songs in the pattern, what's called the pattern view. When you see this orange thing, it's playing the elements you have in the pattern you're selected, which would be, in this case, would be the lead. If you have it unselected, it would play the playlist over here. That's the layout. I would encourage you now, for this song, you can go about laying things out in the way you want to. So let's say, okay, I encourage you to go FL Studio, and let's say, okay, so I want these two. I want the kick or the drums, the piano chords to play a little bit longer. So I select these guys until they turn red. Hold shift, duplicate them. And now let's say, okay, I want them to play for the first 8 bars. And now I want to select these guys, move them over here, and now have them come at the 9-minute mark. Maybe I want to take the bass out for a couple bars here. I can right click or Command Z to do that. I'd encourage you to go back into FL Studio, make sure you know how to take your elements, drag them into the playlist, change the starting point of where you play on the playlist, and just be able to know, okay, this is how you add elements in, how you take them out, how you tell the computer, okay, play the bass at this time, take it out at this time, be able to know how to delete, what have you. So go do that on FL Studio, go in, do it on your version. Again, go back if maybe some things weren't clear, so that in the next video we can start going about adding some effects in.